2019 was filled with great music from rock, metal, alternative, indie, and everything around in that area. However, there was also a lot of trash that came out this year, and that trash actually stood out a little bit more when compared to so many great albums that came this year. So, God help me, here's a look at the top 5 worst albums of 2019. In a year filled with comebacks, breakouts, and tons of great music, we also got, this. And keep in mind, it's just opinions here, so don't get too upset if a band or album you love is discussed. And if you're gonna defend some of the music on this video, please be able to explain why instead of just going nuh-uh in the comments. Here's some ground rules for my top 5 list. Number 1, no live albums, cover albums, parody albums, or EPs. This is just a list for standard album releases. That helps narrow things down too. Number 2, I have not heard every album from 2019. No one has. So if your worst album didn't make my list, leave a comment, let people know what you think is the worst. Get a conversation going, explain why also. I'm pretty sure the comment section is going to get wild after a while anyway, so you know what? Go for it. Just actually say why you feel that way. And number 3, I said it before and I'll say it again. For all of you who are wondering why I only do a top 5 worst instead of top 10 worst, 5 of these are enough. And this year, I could have done just top 3 worst, and that still would have been more than enough for what I'm going to talk about. Finally, please subscribe, not only to get notified on upcoming videos like my top 10 best albums of 2019 coming very soon, but future releases like album reviews and top 10s and regretting the past and whatever other random thing I can think of. I know what you're here to see. I kind of regret doing these videos every year, but it really is good to talk about what's bad to truly appreciate what's great. And to start off, I'm gonna have a die-hard fan base very angry with me. Number 5. I can't stress enough how much I respect Papa Roach for how they treat their fans and how good they are to people at their shows. They've been around for decades and have earned a passionate fan base because of how good they are to their loyal, baby roaches. I don't know what Papa Roach's fans call themselves, but there it is. Putting that aside, Who Do You Trust is an attempt to cash in on a trend that was already dying. The phase of electronic overmixing and beat boops proved disastrous in 2018 for bands like The Amity Affliction and Bullet for My Valentine, and even Muse. Yeah, that's right. I love Muse, but even I can say they sucked last year when they tried to cash in on this fad. But all those bands at least were doing it while it was a fad, as pathetic as that sounds. Papa Roach was months too late on a dying trend and somehow did it 1,000 times worse. The music is poorly constructed. Almost every song sounds like it was randomly chopped up and chaotically placed on track tables, and then they just said, screw it, that's a song, we'll make it better with Pro Tools and Auto-Tune. Pass me another monster, we can do no wrong. The big highlight single Elevate is a combination of the worst dance beats, inspirational lyrics, rap throwdown lyrics, and all these badly combined elements thrown together that are badly transitioned into. Jacoby Shaddix sounds like a shell of his former self. Come Around is a song that sounds like a Crooked Teeth B-side. Not the only one, sounds like you are actively changing the radio station mid-song. Even the quote, bid songs on Who Do You Trust are watered-down attempts at 2019 nu metal Imagine Dragons. If Imagine Dragons ever go nu metal, I am preemptively saying no to every request to cover it. Forget it. Part of it's due to Jacoby trying to branch out into the rap side and not doing well. The other part of it being over-digitized from the studio where I swear some of the band members weren't even needed for making the music. Drums, bass, not necessary. We have terrible sound effects we can use. You'll get a decent throwback song in the style like I Suffer Well, and that's about it. Literally. That's it. Cashing in on fads and badly. Ugh, it's such a mishmash of terrible styles that Papa Roach aren't even good at. Who Do You Trust is 38.5 minutes of you should know better. Papa Roach is not going anywhere, and they're a shining example of working hard in the industry and treating fans right, but in 2019 they released their weakest album to date. Who Do You Trust? Not anyone who is jamming out to Elevate. I swear to God that it might just be the death of me. Number 4. of all the bands I would have predicted to try and chase that Imagine Dragons trend and follow suit in pre-made dance beats disguised as rock and alternative, I never would have expected it to be Switchfoot. This is a band that has been consistently going strong since the late 90s, and I shot them in 2017 and it was a solid show. But their discography has been very up and down since the days of The Beautiful Letdown, and now the band has become Switch Dragons, or Imagine Foot, or terrible. This album's just terrible. Switchfoot, a band that has made so much emotional and uplifting and peaceful music, made something empty in 2019. What happened in San Diego that made such a peaceful hippie band try to cash in and make car commercial music? That's exactly what they've become too. The title track for Native Tongue is hard evidence of that. Instruments being swapped out for hard mixing and sound effects. The song Voices further personifies the Switch Dragons idea with one or two lyric hooks and distorted vocals around a bad beat. And hearing Jon Foreman sing, "I used to listen to the stereo, but I've got an army of voices in my head," is heartbreaking. Coming from someone who really embodied a style of music that should have stood outside of this cash-chasing fad. I'm pretty sure those voices in his head were all telling him that he could make a bigger pool in the backyard if your music had more beat-boop funk in it. Saying Switchfoot sold out is soul-crushing, but what else can I call it? There are even songs like Dig New Streams which start off like something decent, but then go into 3 or 4 terrible transitions into unlistenable, ear-grating, face-palming noise. When you're listening to this and you're not keeling over feeling your heart break, you're laughing hysterically at it. The album is 14 tracks, and while the overall runtime is just over 50 minutes, it feels like an eternity due to so much repetition and monotonous, emotionless music, or program instrumentals if you want to be specific. This was also the first Switchfoot album to not reach the top 20 of Billboard's Top 200 on debut since the year 2000. But I can say it wasn't totally unsuccessful because it won the Dove Award for Best Rock Album of 2019. The Dove Awards are from the Gospel Music Association, who are very desperate to give attention to anything in the Christian music genre. And that's a dying genre if there ever was one. If you want to hear Switchfoot in 2019, just go back and listen to The Beautiful Letdown, or Vice Versa, or even Where the Light Shines Through, because anything that Switchfoot has done in the past is better than Native Tongue. Number 3. Three corporate byproducts, disguised as musicians, released their third full album, Neo Theater, that reached number 8 on the Billboard Top 200 when it released. Neo Theater also was released and ranked at number 1 on Billboard's Top Alternative Albums and number 1 on the Top Rock Albums chart. From the opening track, Next Up Forever, about wondering what sex is like and not wanting to grow up, it's very clear this is an album directly intended to be bought with allowance money, and kids everywhere are getting manipulated by thinking AJR is legitimate artistry and musicianship, when in reality it's a boardroom of label executives emailing directions on what this band should be and how they should sound to the kiddos. So much of this album is insufferable, terrible pandering lyrics, over Pro Tool beats and digital vocal effects, and the shocking part? Many of the songs sound identical to each other and to songs on their previous gold-selling album, The Click. No promises, but 5 years from now, if rock is still going and YouTube hasn't completely collapsed in on itself, I will do a Regretting the Past on The Click. And somehow Neo Theater is a step above The Click, too, for whatever that's worth. There's a serious sounding song titled Don't Throw Out My Legos about, again, not having to completely grow up. These are grown men trying to make life-relatable songs to 10-year-olds. And then there's the smash hit 100 Bad Days. This is by far one of the musical high points on the album, and it's laughably bad. It wouldn't bother me so bad, but this is clearly 3 gullible men who are not playing their own instruments, but rather having studio engineers push buttons until they get the sound they want. There's an old Simpsons episode where the creators of Itchy and Scratchy had a focus group with a bunch of children, and all the kids in town, Springfield, were all hitting yes and no on all the things they wanted to see in an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon and what they liked when they were shown something. I'm convinced that's how AJR made this album as well. They asked a bunch of children what they wanted to hear about in the album, and they said yes to everything. You want to hear a song about being cool at parties? Yeah, okay! I honestly don't even think these guys in AJ are being malicious or intentionally manipulative, but this is 100% a product, not music, a product designed to hook youth through corporate shilling and brainwashing. That's it. This is the equivalent of a Happy Meal, but instead of a Hot Wheels toy, you get auto-tune. I'm not loving it. AJR is going to be around for a while because the music is ridiculously easy to make, quick to create, and cheap to process, just like a Happy Meal. And it has as little substance or value as that cheap burger and baggie of fries as well. I don't know how AJR gets away with selling spoiled rich kid problems as meaningful, but here it is. Number 2. Wes Scantlin proved all doubters wrong after getting completely sober for over a year now and rising from the ashes like a glorious phoenix, and that is Puddle of Mud. But instead of a phoenix rising from the ashes, a more appropriate analogy would be, instead of the phoenix, it being a roadkill raccoon in Alabama, and instead of the ashes, it being one of Wes Scantlin's many onstage meltdowns.
This is the motherfucker right here. This guy stole my fucking house.
Welcome to Galvania was supposed to be the comeback, the proof that Wes Scantlin can still do something. They even made a headline tour calling it Mudfest and supported it for months to get the dirty mud name back in everyone's head. To put this in perspective, I did a Regretting the Past years ago on Come Clean. Welcome to Galvania is worse. That's what I get for asking how could it get worse than this. Man, I learned a lesson. Wes Scantlin has already proven he's not a lyric writer, but now it's been dumbed down to one-liners and nonsensical ramblings. The rhythm section and writing is some of the most stock, bare-bones, backtrack music you can find. On top of all that, the production is wretched. It sounds like Wes is singing from the back of the room at some points, and the studio engineer was drunk and partially deaf. It was when I got to the song Go to Hell on the album and Scantlin gave the most shameless attempt at a Kurt Cobain impression that I thought even Dave Grohl would be offended. And Dave Grohl is great to everyone. Seriously, everything I thought about Wes Scantlin as a musician is amplified more on Welcome to Galvania. He can't write songs, his guitar work is basic, and his singing is so bad, he belongs on the first round of cuts from America's Got Talent. When Welcome to Galvania came out and Uh-Oh was getting airplay, it's when I realized that radio DJs really do take bribes, because there is no way that anyone in broadcasting would play this unironically or outside of getting a laugh. It has to be for money. Every song on this album proves that no matter what musician is behind Wes Scantlin and Puddle of Mud, the music will never be worth hearing. The problem with the music was always the person driving it, and that man continues to prove that his past music hasn't aged well and his current music is somehow even more unlistenable. Here's a fun fact. Wes Scantlin has been pushing his brand Puddle of Mud since the early 1990s. For 2019, there were big comebacks like Tool and continued great music like from Slipknot. So when you hear Puddle of Mud's trying to make a comeback this year also, you might think this is their chance to step it up and really make a rebound. Not a chance. This was absolutely awful. Great that Wes Scantlin's completely clean now and staying out of trouble, but that might be the only things going for him. I could say it's a shame that Welcome to Galvania wasn't any better, but even when I was trying to give Wes Scantlin and Puddle of Mud another chance, it was nothing more than filth that should have been ignored. Treat Galvania like you would Chernobyl. Stay far away. All that, and we're still not at the worst of this year. You know, before we get to number 1, please like this video below. That helps to prove to the YouTube algorithms that people actually enjoy this video and want to see it, so that way YouTube pushes it to non-subscribers. Also, it helps to prove to me that my suffering was not in vain. Alright, what was worse than AJR and Puddle of Mud in 2019? Number 1. Absolutely everything wrong with the scene section of music, and this fake edgelord faux tough guy brand of kiddie metal is personified to a textbook definition through Attila. It is 2019 and I am still shocked that this band has such a following based only on appearance and fake anger. That's it. It might as well just be a gimmick at this point. The shrieking, the terrible vocals, the cliche guitar riffs that have been done a million times before, the stock drums, the worst attempt at shock lyrics just to get attention still have me amazed that people over the age of 14 haven't caught on yet with how stupid and immature this all is. There's a song about putting pineapple on pizza that isn't funny. The following song's about killing people. They went from pizza to murder. You cannot tell me that it doesn't sound like 14-year-old boys wrote this. When I talk about the scene, music lovers, I mean this when I say it. Your scene is poisoned and will never be taken seriously because of music like this. This is the most unemotional, worthless, talentless music I have heard in 2019. There is not one thing salvageable in Villain. In 10 years from now, I assure you, this band and this album is something that's going to be laughed at in retrospect. Songs like New Addiction, where they brought in a girl to call Franz daddy. That's the type of material you get. In 2019, a year filled to the brim with good rock and metal, Attila came in desperate for attention, but exposing themselves as not a one-trick pony, but a gimmick. That's all they are. It's ICP levels of writing while trying to look cool sitting on the back of the school bus holding instruments. It's not metalcore, it's trashcore. It's the combination of different genres that should be thrown into a dumpster. Attila, Amur, King A10, all of this. Trashcore. I am serious when I say it. I want the label trashcore to be attributed to bands like this. It's time bad music be called out for what it is. Trash. Attila's Villain is proof that not only do the band not take what they do seriously, but that every one of their fans who come to their shows to fake mosh and be seen wearing all black are in total denial over how bad this band actually is. It's literally unintentional noise rock. It's out of sync instruments with squealing and shrieking that clips the audio. It's trashcore. If Franz and Attila are your musical heroes and you loved Villain, go ahead and love it. But in a year as strong as 2019, Attila easily created this year's worst album. And that was a look at the top 5 worst albums of 2019. What do you think was the worst album this year? Leave a comment and let everyone know. I'll be checking comments on this video for a while because I'm curious to hear what people will chime in with. Big thanks to my patrons and a special thanks to Brandon Barenfeld. You can support Rocked on Patreon and have a say in upcoming videos like voting on album reviews, top 10s, regretting the past, etc. $2 goes a long way for the channel. You can even see long videos early. Consider helping and get more info on the link in the YouTube card and video description below. Please subscribe so you get notified on upcoming videos, including my top 10 best albums of 2019. You can check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.